Hi guys, so as I promised, I want to take you some of the errors involved in programming and development. So as you know, in programming, errors can occur at various stages of development and deployment, and these are some of the errors. So the first error is what we call the syntax error, which occurs when codes violates the rules of the programming language. For example, you can have a missing semicolon, parentheses, or even you can have an incorrect indentation. An example of such devices is a simple calculator, a scientific calculator. You always realize that when you make an input to your arithmetic denotations, when you make an error, the outcome may always show you something like a syntax error. An example is when you use two consecutive symbols, like maybe 1 plus minus 2, without proper punctuation, it will always produce a syntax error. The next error is a logical error, and this occurs when the code runs without crashing but produces incorrect results due to a flawed logic or incorrect algorithmic implementation. These errors can also be subtle and difficult to correct, especially when you have a long range of codes. The third error is what we call the runtime error, which is also known as exceptions or runtime exceptions. This occurs when the code is syntactically correct but encounters an issue while excluding or executing, such as dividing by 0, assessing an invalid index in an array, or attempting to open a file that doesn't exist. The next error, or the fourth error, is what we call the semantic errors. These are errors in the meaning, or I would say understanding of the code. They can occur when the code behaves differently from what the programmer intended. But these are no syntactical or logical issues. What do I mean by that? What I mean is that these errors are often challenging to detect because the code runs without following any error. The next error I can take you through is what we call the arithmetic error. That's our error number 5. And this occurs when there are issues with arithmetic operations, such as overflow. I would say such as overflow in resuming from computational exceeding, the range representable within a certain value. I'm trying to get a clear example on that, but it's a case whereby a code loses its precision. Maybe you can research on that, because I'm having challenges bringing a clear definition, but mostly occurs when the arithmetic operations such as overflows loses their precisions. So the 6th error is what we call the resource error, and this occurs when the program fails to manage system resources properly. Again, you can do a research on the resource error and expound on your knowledge on that. The 7th error is what we call the concurrency error, And this occurs in a multiple threaded or a parallel program when the multiple threads access shared resources concurrently. So you find a case whereby when you are trying to run your program and you recall a file, but your program or your runtime modulars ends up accessing maybe two files at the same time, therefore executing what we call the concurrency error. So the eighth error is what we call the input-output error. And this occurs when there are issues with reading from or writing. Mostly occurs when there are issues with reading from or writing to external sources such as files, we have database or network connections. Just to make it clear with an example, we can include files which are not found when trying to recall a file. An example, when you are doing a simple website, in this case a simple HTML website, then you want to recall an image from an external file, maybe in your cPanel or desktop, and you realize that the program cannot recall the proper location of the file. Or when you want to call recall or call a file with a restriction like an admin permission, most of the time you'll be told that the permission denied because maybe you don't have access, or maybe you have to proceed and log in as an admin. Another example is a case whereby you try to recall a file from, maybe when you're doing an online coding and you try to recall a file from your external device or maybe desktop, maybe trying to upload an image to your cPanel. Most of the time you'll realize that you'll be told something like there's a network timeout, or there's a runtime timeout error. So those are some of the inputs or output errors. And our last error is what we call the environmental error. And this occurs due to difference in the execution environmental modulars. I would say something like when you're developing or deploying a program, it could come with some environmental challenges, and these challenges can be something like difference in operating systems, difference in calling your libraries, or maybe a challenge in hardware configuration. That could be a perfect example, whereby configuring or trying to configure your hardwares may not be successful, and you end up ensuring that your programs don't run. So those are our key 9 errors in programming. Just to list them or highlight them briefly. The first one was syntax error. The second one was logical error. The third one was runtime error. The fifth one was what we call the semantic error. The fifth one was the arithmetic error. The sixth one was the resource error. The seventh one was the concurrency error. The eighth one is the input/output error. And the ninth one is what we call the environmental error. So guys, thanks once more, and keep in touch. We keep learning, we share ideas, and we make corrections where possible. Karibuni.